Subria Whitaker, founder of Grow the Game. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is the WNBA's starting date. Like the season begins tonight, and we could be talking about that, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some news that happened yesterday that had the WNBA Twitter streets talking, Subria. So WNBA SKIMS, SKIMS is the official underwear partner for the WNBA and the NBA as well, but for the WNBA, and they dropped a campaign yesterday, and it featured a variety of players, and the reactions to it were so interesting to me, right? Because they were all over the place, right? There were a lot of people celebrating this, counting it as a win, saying like, look at us, we're finally getting everything that we asked for in terms of campaign ads, all the attention being on the league right now, right? But then there were also people calling out the campaign and saying, look, this is great, and we're happy for the players that get to be a part of this and that are being celebrated. But there are also maybe some players that are not being represented in this campaign, and that was, gave, some cause for criticism, which then resulted in people saying, y'all can't be happy about anything. Like, why are you complaining? And I just think a lot of these conversations are really important. So I thought there was no one else better than you, Subria, to have this conversation with me, because the WNBA is such a unique league. It differs even from other women's sports leagues. And part of that reason is that they have a very large queer population. And that's an underrepresented community in society, but also within the WNBA. So can you talk a little bit about your initial reaction to the campaign when you first saw it?
My initial reaction was, of course, and here we go again. Like, you and I have had a conversation about Skims before, where we talked about how they previously done a campaign because they're also the official underwear partner for USA basketball. And they used Asia Wilson heavily for that campaign a few years ago. But this campaign to me was a slap in the face for everything that we've been talking about for the past, at least the past 2 seasons, out loud, about the lack of representation of mask presenting players, as well as the different treatment of not just the difference between black and white players, but when colorism comes into play, and the clear lack of dark skinned players, and a lot of jokes essentially saying, did they all have to pass a paper brown bag test?
Okay, so first, can you talk a little bit about, can you explain to anyone who may be watching what you mean by mask presenting? Because Roz Gold on Woody, she tweeted, and she didn't use that phrase, but she talked about the representation as well. She says, okay, love the WNBA and Skims campaign. Ladies look beautiful and strong, full stop. Wouldn't it have been cool if, say, there was representation for a darker shade skin, which you brought up, Subria, a more full-bodied, voluptuous woman, and perhaps a stud expression of femininity? All this is what makes the W, right? And that's true because the W is a unique league. So can you elaborate more on, mask presenting and what Roz was trying to get at with this tweet?
Yeah, I think there are two things, because a lot of players will probably, say they don't want to be put in a box, and that's super fair. And there's a range of expression from femme to mass presenting. So one, I'll say the issue of the lack of fully, like, what we would consider a stud. Someone like a Kirsten Bell, a Brittany Sykes, who typically doesn't dress as feminine, but still buys and wears underwear. And honestly, if you go look at the Skims website and you look at the different silhouettes of underwear they have boxers and briefs. So the fact that they specifically chose this type of underwear for this campaign. And then the second thing is, And hey, maybe Candace can tweet me later and tell me I'm wrong, but when was the last time we've seen Candace Parker in heels? So why was it so necessary to put every last player in heels for this campaign when they've done plenty of campaigns before where they were barefoot? Or could they just not wear anything else? So I think it was very similar to a case before with the swimsuit issue where we saw Sue Bird and Breonna Stewart, who typically wear, who are, I guess, on the range of mass presenting, who wear baggier, more men's clothes, were wearing two-piece swimming suits. And it's essentially that all over again. So it seems like no one is listening.
Yeah, you said a lot of things here, and I want to hit a few of them. So, when you talk about Skims and the fact that they have like boxers, um, are those categorized for men, or is it under the women's line as well, or are they gender neutral?
It is under the women's line. It
Okay.
is under the women's line, yes.
Okay, so it's under the women's line. That's important to know. So someone like a Brittany Sykes, for example, if they would have chosen her, or Kirsten Bell, they could have worn, perhaps been a part of this campaign and wore something like that. That would be representative maybe of themselves if they would like that. I don't know, but that would be an example of what would have looked like better representation, you think?
Yes, and even if it's not necessarily representative of their selves, I mean, I consider myself to be femme presenting. I know a lot of femme presenting women do wear, boy shorts, boxers, like they have boxers and briefs under the women's line. So I'm not even saying, oh, because they are a partner with the NBA, just wear some of the men's line. No, these are marketed as the women's line. So to me, it's like, why would you sacrifice your own product, promotion of your own product that you already have that could have easily and organically been marketed in this campaign, but you almost went out of your way not to do so?
Right. And I don't know if it's because this is like Kim Kardashian's brand. She's one of the co founders, and Kim Kardashian represents a certain aesthetic. So I don't know if that's why, but you brought up Candace Parker wearing the heels. Why was that so notable, though? Why is that so significant? You said she hasn't worn them in a few years, but what do you feel like that's them trying to force her to be someone she's not anymore, or isn't?
I mean, well, one, she looks good. So
Yes.
it's not even that it doesn't even feel forced because we've seen her, over the years and develop into who she is now. And I believe that she can really wear almost anything she wants and will still look great. I just feel like the heels period, and then on every single person, that in itself seemed really forced and out of place, because yes, they're selling underwear, but they're also basketball players. I don't personally purchase my underwear based on if they have matching heels. So I just felt like that was completely unnecessary overall and was almost overcompensating for the fact that they are, women's basketball players and athletes. And it was to try to soften them up, which was, again, completely unnecessary.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is Candace. I don't know if you consider her light brown skin, but she's wearing a darker shade than her complexion. And you brought up the brown paper bag test. So for people who may not be familiar with that, can you explain what that is, first of all?
I mean, unfortunately for generations, just in, our community stemming from racism and all of those other things, there's typically this idea that with colorism, it's if you are lighter than the brown paper bag, then it's like, okay, thumbs up. If you are the same color or darker then you're not as marketable, or they choose to not promote you, which it's, again, the facts say that there were other individuals who might not have passed the brown paper bag test and apparently were not included in this main campaign. But also, to your point, if this is supposed to be nudes, And again, I know that they have some colors that are gray and black, but if this is supposed to show nudes, why not show them on the correct skin color to where they look, I don't know, nude?
Right, and that's what was interesting. Also the body types that were chosen that Roz brought up. So you have Kelsey Plum here. Cameron Brink was also someone who was a part of this. And Cameron looks great. We know she's really into like fashion and stuff like that. All of them look great, but a lot of these women are thinner, which there's nothing wrong with being thinner, but Roz brought it up. Like, why couldn't there also have maybe been some more full-figured, voluptuous women who are a part of this ad? So we're also, talking about size here. We're talking about complexion. I think they did a pretty good job mixing it up in race, but there are some other problems. Like, as you mentioned, representation just isn't about, black or white. And like you said, usually when you're saying something is a nude, it's supposed to match like your complexion. So why have Dejanay Carrington or even Candace Parker, in these with the darker colors, right? You could just use other people. So everyone's, everyone meaning like not everyone, obviously, but people on Twitter, people are sort of reacting to this. And someone tweeted, I cannot recall who, but they brought up the fact that Jonquel Jones, spoke about this before, and the fact that, someone like her doesn't get the same opportunities, as other players, and thought it was like a good time for people to go back and, read what she talked about in her interview. And so this is an example of that playing out. And she did that interview, I want to say it was 2 years ago during her MVP year. So this is a problem in the league, obviously, as we know. With more eyes on the league, the hope is, I think that, because the calls for this to change and calling them out isn't new. So that's not new. But what I'm hoping is with more eyes on the league, that maybe they'll be forced, to make some changes. Some people were pointing out that players like Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young were a part of this campaign, so that we were jumping the gun, which I don't think that they meet all the qualifications we were talking about. I think Chelsea looks so great though in this picture, by the way. All of her pictures, all of them, but I really loved the way Chelsea looked. And Jackie Young as well, right? So this is more fitting for her in terms of her complexion and the color, right? So that makes sense. But the thing is, there was like an official video, and there were only certain players like that was tweeted from the Skims account and posted on their Instagram. And also the players who were in that video are the only players who Skims tweeted from their official account. So what I don't understand is why Chelsea and Jackie had to, post from their own Instagram accounts. And there were some other players, Lexi Brown, De'Arica Hamby, but it seemed that, like, are they official partners? And if they are, then why aren't they in the ad? Why are the only people in the ad Kelsey Plum and Cameron Brink and Candace Parker and, Carrington? And so it's things like that. There were other people, like I said, like Lexi tweeting out things posting, I think that's her Instagram. So do you have any more insight, Subria, on how they decided, who was going to be in that, I guess, official campaign video and who got promoted from their account versus some of these other players who are putting out their own pictures?
So I will say, hypothetically speaking, let's say there is a partner who is a partner of the league and they are paying the league to be a sponsor. So essentially they are the client, if you will. They will go to the league and say, we want to do this campaign. The league will recommend players. At that point, it's completely up to the brand or the sponsor to move forward with their suggestions or their own. And then that invitation has to be acknowledged and accepted by the agent or the player. So that is typically the way that the process goes. So I know that we've been on the league about a lot of things, and on this one, I am almost certain that it's not them. Like I know that they are reading the posts, they hear the conversations. I think as you mentioned about other players being involved but not included in the official video, to me this seems like a Skims decision. And I don't know if we'll get more information at some point about all of the players who were asked, but the fact that Kalani Brown hits one of those points of the different sizes being included, the different skin tones, and she actually wanted to be a part, I hope that this can start a conversation with the league and its partners to listen to the players more. Because I was told from a player that they specifically asked their rep to make sure that not only FEMs were included. So I'm
Mm.
hoping that they can figure out a way to again make sure that it's mutually beneficial, because unfortunately the league gets a lot of the backlash and they seem to be paying for a lot of decisions that their partners are making, from television to underwear.
Thank you. Great insight as always from you, Subria. Well, we will continue to monitor things like this and bring awareness to it, but I appreciate you joining me to talk about this. And I know, like me, you're looking forward to tonight's season beginning. So we will have you back soon to talk more WNBA.
Thank you.